Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Military Transition Wellness, the podcast dedicated exclusively to those transitioning from military service. I'm your host, Michelle Seidling, and today we're talking about networking and the importance of networking on your wellness and on your life as you transition from military service. Here to help us do that is Adam Braatz, a networking guru of all things. Hi, Adam. Welcome to the podcast. This podcast is available on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others. Please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to be informed as new episodes become available. If you enjoyed today's episode or any of our episodes, please rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform. As always, check out our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com for some resources as you begin your health journey.
Hey, thanks for having me, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, welcome. Will you take a moment and introduce yourself and what brought you to the world of networking?
Sure. Well, my name's Adam Braatz. I'm an Air Force veteran. I served active duty from 2008 until just before 2016, so about 7.5 years. Transitioned out of that and have pretty much been working exclusively in the nonprofit world ever since. My transition story is a very common one. I was unemployed for a short time in transition, but underemployed for quite some time. Underemployment in my state, the percentage of the unemployed veterans is actually lower than everybody else. Our unemployment rates are crazy low, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Our underemployment situation, rather, throughout the whole country is epidemic and can lead to a wide variety of issues. Issues in, it's not just money, it's not just getting a salary and being able to care for your family in a manner to which they've grown accustomed, which is a very important thing, but also there's a holistic wellness aspect to this. Underemployment can be can really drain you. And it was me getting out of that and realizing the path away from underemployment was shoring up these holes in my knowledge and these holes in my experience and these holes in my presentation as a professional, all of which were centered around professional networking.
Okay, wow. So when you transitioned out, was it did you just decide, or was there kind of a preparation phase? What was that actual transition process like?
Well, there are folks on this end, on the post transition end, who are just screaming from the rooftops about the transition process. And I feel like there are more evangelists for the process and accepting it as a process, as a holistic process. There are way more of us now, so it's finally starting to get through. But there are information gatekeepers, between the civilian world and military folks. And I didn't know what I didn't know, which is a very common refrain amongst, veterans who are approaching their transition. I didn't know that my LinkedIn was not okay. I didn't know that a master's degree wouldn't guarantee me, an almost a six-figure job. Like, I didn't know. And my source of information was my transition assistance program, which has since been expanded and improved and more targeted. And I'm definitely, though I was in the past, I'm not really in the business now of ripping on the TAPS program, because it is what it is. They do what they can with the amount of time that they've been given. And the facilitators of that program are passionate about helping veterans transition. There's nothing malicious about it. But that was the extent. The old kind of transition assistance program, congressionally mandated death by PowerPoint for a week, that was supposed to prepare me for this post-service employment. And I went through it, and like a lot of people in class with me, I was just so ready to make that move. I had already made my mind up. I knew I was separating. Retirees know they're retiring. Most people know that this is happening, and they're just so ready to get to the next chapter that it's like they don't really thoroughly read the last 20 pages of the chapter they're on, and it really blinds them to what happens in the next chapter. There's a lot of plot holes, which is an analogy I just came up with now that I'm really proud of.
I love it. Wow. So it just kind of you go through the program, go through the
Mhm,
process, and then figuring out what you're going to do with the rest of your life on the
mhm.
back end.
Well, I applied for, and this is very, very common. I applied for a lot of things that were good fits, and I applied for a lot of things that were like barely tangentially related. Michael Quinn talks about it on his LinkedIn. I've seen him talk about it several times. He's a very well known veteran LinkedIn influencer. The whole, like, if you're scrolling through through job listings, and you're not searching in a targeted way, and you're just saying like, oh, I could do that. I could do that, then you're not searching for jobs. You're not making good use of your time. But that was me. And so I applied for, I mean, to be an executive assistant for, to be oh man, I thought about the police academy. I applied for, I mean, just, and kudos to everybody who does those gigs. Those are really important. They just didn't fit with my education. They didn't fit with my passion. They didn't fit with my experience. They were just, I was like just throwing stuff at the wall to see what would stick. And big shocker, 99% of the things I applied for didn't even like reach out to me,
Mm.
which shouldn't have been a shocker, but it was discouraging. And finally, I had a master's in nonprofit administration. And finally, I had an organization, a longstanding national organization, looking for a local executive take a chance on me. And the hiring manager there, boy, thanks to him, if it wasn't for him, maybe I'd still be unemployed. I don't know. But he saw my absolutely ridiculous resume and saw through all of the pompous, wordy, irrelevant nonsense, and saw somebody who has the education and the pedigree and the experience, and is appreciated the service. Not like magnetic ribbon on his car and that's about it. Appreciated the service. Like, he actually kind of understood what being a service member meant, that it's not just rolling around in the desert with a rifle. There are soft skills, there are interpersonal skills, there are office skills, like things that you normally would have to train somebody in if they're fresh out of school.
Mm.
And so he brought me in and he hired me. And we had to talk about my resume afterwards because it was off the wall. It's really bad. The executive summary is like, yeah, it's ridiculous. I use the word sagacious in there. Like, my TAPS instruction told me to use a thesaurus and find like impressive sounding words. So it ended up being this like yeah, it was awful. So he hired me, and he wasn't trying to take advantage of me. The amount that he was allowed to hire entry level executives in that area was set by the national umbrella organization. So he didn't have a lot of leeway. He gave to me what he could. Um, but I was still, I mean, 10 years plus of work experience and a master's degree. I was salaried at $36,000. And anyone who's worked in the nonprofit world knows that it's rarely a 40-hour a week job. And a lot of times when you're salaried at those low rates, what it is it's just an excuse to take advantage of people who have less experience, less relevant experience, or people that are fresh out of school. I would have been better off, being paid hourly, because the salary was so low, especially based on what I brought to the table. So, uh, you know, eh, calculating out how much I was getting paid per hour based on the amount of time that I was actually putting in, weekdays, weeknights, weekends. It was, and I didn't know at that point, it being my first post service gig, how to separate my sense of self from that employment. I
Mm.
didn't understand the holistic part of the transition. I was like, oh, I transitioned, I got a job, done, good. you know and so I very similar to how people do in the military, because you don't really have a choice, I attributed a lot of my sense of self to my employment,
Mm.
and gave more than 40 hours, more than 50 hours. I gave a lot, but that didn't put more money in my pocket. It just took me away from my family more. And here I was, salaried at near poverty levels, and getting drained, and being treated a lot of times by other people in that organization, not the guy who hired me, he was great, like I was a kid fresh out of school. And here I was in my 30s and had all this work and world experience, and it was demoralizing. It drained me. So like I'm worth more than this. I should be treated better than this. And that's a common thing that veterans experience in an underemployment situation in the workforce, and it can be dangerous.
Mm. Absolutely, because you're just giving so much. Now is that kind of, do you think that the nature of the military, that you're giving and then you're not really, identifying, I guess, with the actual civilian job that you've entered into.
Well, I think the military is, and I can't speak for everybody. I will never try to be the person who claims to be the emperor of veterans, and
Mhm.
um, but I have found personally, and I know a lot of people who feel the same. When you're in the military, it really is an all-encompassing thing. Yeah, you're yourself on the weekends, but are you really? I mean, you could get called in at any time. Your time is not your own. Even on your free time, there are things that you can't do, that you're not allowed to do, whether you're in uniform or not. I mean, it really is an all-encompassing thing. Many people live on base, they shop on base, they recreate on base, they spend their free time with the people they serve with. Every day they wear the same. It is an all-encompassing thing. It is more than just a gig, whether service members want to admit it or not. If you're active duty and you're in, like, it's more than that. And a lot of veterans derive a lot of their sense of self from that, and mistakenly so. My theory is that many people leave the military then associating their sense of worth and value with their employment. And not only do they then give way too much, like, clock out at 5, man, you're done, like, leave. But they'll give way too much, especially if they're in a salaried position, and they'll accept things because they don't have the education about, conveying their value and negotiating salary. They'll accept things that are below what they're worth, and then they'll just get beat up. And
Mm.
it's being surrounded by people who don't have that same all-encompassing connection with their sense of self and their job can be demoralizing. Getting paid way less than what you're worth, can be demoralizing. Working long hours and being unappreciated as a professional can be demoralizing. Being treated like a fresh undergrad or a kid right out of high school can be demoralizing. And all of these things kind of swirl together and create a dangerous underemployment situation. And this is where, this is where the 22 a day comes from. A portion of those, at least, in that, you know, people scratch their head saying, like, why? I don't get why this veteran committed suicide. They didn't have post-traumatic stress. They're not a combat veteran. Well, okay, there's why. Because they connect their sense of self to their employer, and they go into an employment situation that sucks. It's not a good fit. They're not valued. They're not paid what they're worth. They're overworked and underpaid. And these folks in these situations, and I experienced this, they start to doubt their own value as a contributor to society. Am
Mhm.
I ever going to work here? Am I ever going to do anything important? And then, you have to work long and hard to keep that job to make ends meet. And it's really hard to get the energy or the gumption to go apply for other stuff. And that's why underemployment is a trap, and it's a dangerous one.
Okay. So we've got the identity, you're wrapped up in that, in your active duty stint, whatever you've got, but then you've got, you're going from 60 to 0 essentially, and just trying to give so much. What's the, I guess, the process? How do you transition out of that mentality and being able to have some degree of balance in your life where you're still giving, you're still being of value, but yet you're being realistic into how much you're giving.
I think there's two parts of it, and this is a super good question. First and foremost, you have to almost force yourself to separate your sense of value from your employment. And it can be very uncomfortable and downright impossible to do at first, just because we've been conditioned. And it depends upon how long you've been in and served, and to what extent it can be a real challenge. But, like, clocking out at 40 hours, leaving at 5 on a Friday, not showing up early and staying late doesn't mean you don't care about what you're doing. You can still provide value and find meaning in your work within those confines, and you should. Don't, because anything else is just allowing yourself to be exploited. And you know in addition to that mentality that, like, I am trading my time for money right now. And that doesn't mean that you don't care about the overarching impact of the organization or you're less dedicated. It really doesn't, which sounds backwards to a lot of military folks. It is what it is. If your employer could pay you less and work you for longer hours and pay you less and get more out of you, they would. It's not that they're trying, some of them are, but it's not like they're trying to hurt you. That's just business in a capitalist society, which we are for better or for worse. Your employer, if they could get more from you and pay you less, they would. So you need to be your advocate, your own advocate, and say when is when, and do your 40 hours, and and understand that you are providing a value and a service and creating value for an organization, whether it's profit or nonprofit or governmental or whatever. You're providing a value, and you're trading your time for a compensation to provide that value. So that understanding is one, and the other understanding is where we kind of get into the networking piece. Networking is so stinking important, whether you want to develop your career within your organization, outside of your organization, whether you want to change careers. And yes, military transition is a career change, right? Or if you have entrepreneurial ambitions or think that someday you may want to start a business or a side hustle or something, there is literally no situation in which networking would be a waste of time. And any serious professional will tell you, unless it is a very, very rare circumstance, that networking has been key to growth and success. And the right time to start networking is yesterday, last week, last year. So if I could tell anyone, if I could go back, if I could send an email to everybody who's a year out from transitioning, I would say, set up your LinkedIn, lurk for a while, optimize it, make sure it doesn't look like garbage. Don't put anything on there you wouldn't say in a job interview, and then network locally, face to face, network in the place where you hope to transition to, network through LinkedIn, expand your network, share your story, grow that, because you would be surprised at the ways that you can leverage that if you're looking for a new job or a business opportunity or a promotion or like I said, an entrepreneurial endeavor. I mean, that understanding that networking, not for personal gain, networking for the sake of developing a network, which can be backwards. Usually you want to, it can seem backwards. You want to do something with an end in mind, but changing that line of thinking, like networking just to grow your network, to create relationships, and then to provide value to other people. To be a person who knows a person. If you create a friendship with somebody and they say, my pain point, I'm really looking for X, Y, Z. Oh, well, I know somebody over here who can help. And then you connect and you help and you serve and you give without expecting anything in return. I'm not talking about networking so you can send your resume to 100 people. That's a bad look. I'm talking about networking genuinely, organically, and giving and serving and listening. And then, which can sound backwards to people who haven't done it before, but I'm telling you, 10 times out of 10, business karma, professional karma will take care of you. So those two things, separating your sense of self from the employment and networking aggressively in a completely service-oriented way. If you want to serve and do good things, if you're still feeling that like powerful altruism from your time in the military, that's how you do it.
Doing that through the networking
Absolutely.
process. Okay.
By connecting people and solving problems.
I love it. And now, okay, networking as a form of wellness, or what's that wellness aspect or benefit, or as part of that whole transition process?
That's also a really good question. So, developing a network and being serious about it and being serious about serving others and providing value and being a connector is what allowed me to get out of an underemployment situation. So, underemployment, as I mentioned earlier, has a holistic impact on your well-being, on your physical well-being, on your interpersonal well-being, your emotional, your spiritual. It is draining and it's a trap and it's hard to get out of. So, anything that gets you out of that situation is probably going to be good for your wellness. Overarchingly, it'll be better for your interpersonal relationships. You'll have more time. You're feeling more valued. You won't be, depressed and anxious as much. And, you won't have that work-related stress or that dejection of feeling demoralized and undervalued in a work environment. Especially coming from, you had 200 direct reports and now you're like bottom of the totem pole. It can be hard. It can be a gut punch to your ego. But sorry, I get on side tangents there. I'm passionate about this. I'm not sure if you can tell. But so you get out of that situation, and that contributes to your wellness, obviously. But in addition, as your career grows and as your network grows, you find that you have more opportunities to serve and provide value, to solve pain points, to help other people rise out of unemployment, underemployment, poverty, challenging situations, to people with challenging business situations that are looking for that last puzzle piece to succeed. Being that person who is a connector and a person who knows people and has a powerful network, a really like a organically developed network, can not only help your career professionally or entrepreneurially, but it feels awesome to help people, and to help people in a way that you're not expecting anything in return, to just do it because that's what you do. And the ancillary benefit is that it helps every walk of your professional life, no matter what it is that you want to do. As long as you have the right mindset, as long as in the back of your head, you're not saying like, well, I'm doing this so I can benefit down the road. You just do it to plant seeds. The harvest will come later. You plant seeds, you get everybody to pollinate, and then you reap the benefits down the road, and it will.
I love that, and that kind of feeds into what you were talking about within the military. You're identifying with your work, and you're putting in all these crazy hours,
Mhm.
and this way you're still putting in, hours with regard to networking, but it seems more fruitful than simply just working more at your given job.
Yep, it absolutely can be. And I think the key is to not necessarily be super targeted with it. Because if it, for example, if you are looking for a promotion position in IT, and so you network exclusively with people who work for IT firms and are hiring authorities for IT firms, um, that is a self-serving networking endeavor, because you're hoping at the end that you're going to find a job. But what happens if one of those IT people says, my real pain point is that, I need an HR generalist really bad at my organization. And if you're in a position where you can say like, oh, I know Jane or John over here. I was just having coffee with him or her the other day, and they're looking for a change right now. Could be a great fit. You connect, you let them do their thing. You're planting seeds. Harvest comes later. And so if you are too targeted with your networking,
Mm.
too targeted in a self-serving fashion, you lose all of those fingers, those spider webs that make you a good connector. You lose out on that. You have a singular path. That's why this idea of high volume networking, where you are deliberately less targeted with your networking. You obviously have your targets and the things that you're looking for and the people who you're looking to connect with who might be fruitful down the road. But you also take that meeting with the random people, and you seek meetings with random people, and you have good conversations, and you have some bad conversations, and you have some really flourishing relationships, and you have some really awkward dialogues, and you get practiced at being an extemporaneous conversationalist, and you get to know people, and you ask questions and listen so you can get more of those connective spider webs. um, I forgot what question I was answering, but I think that's an important that's an important point.
No, that kinda hit the mark for sure. Now, what is that happy medium for,
Mm,
okay, instead of, okay, I'm targeted on the IT field or whatever field versus, hey, I'm way too broad, I'll take anything. Where's
right.
that happy medium?
That's a super good question. Maybe 50-50. If you were 100%, like, let's say you're that IT person and you're looking for a career in IT. Let's say you're stationed at Lackland, you're in San Antonio, and you're about to separate and you're going to move to Boston and you want a job in IT. So your targeted network outreach would be to seek out fellow veterans, great place to start, fellow veterans who are in the Boston area who work in IT. And that's a targeted network opportunity. And you reach out to those people, you send them a personalized connection request, and you ask for nothing. You just send them a personalized thing that says, hey, I see you're in the Boston area, you work in IT, you're a fellow Air Force veteran. I'm about to separate and move to your neck of the woods. I'm also in the Air Force and I work in IT. Like, we have a lot in common. I'd love to connect. Leave it
Mm.
there. Don't attach your resume. Don't send a link. Don't send a Zoom link or a Calendly thing to hop on a call. Like just say hi. And that's your targeted thing, is that there are logical connection points. You have shared service. You might be in the same branch, or they were in the same branch that you're currently in. They're living in the area where you want to go, and they work in the same industry. Those are connection points. That makes it targeted, right? All that other stuff will work out on its own if you just introduce yourself and connect. A lot of times they may say like, "Hey, let's chat," and then you have a great opportunity for a virtual coffee, and you can ask questions and learn. You still don't ask for anything. You just connect. Or they may say, "Hey, I know this person who's looking for people. Maybe I'll connect you." And sometimes they won't. Okay, you're building your business and professional karma. So that's targeted. So maybe half reaching out to people who are in a completely different part of the country that um, you may never live or may never have gone to, who have some tangential connection, like you went to the same university, or you're connected to the same person, and you might be distant third cousins or something, whatever. You just reach out to people and tell them why you want to connect with them and connect. But don't underestimate the power of the face to face, the actual coffee, and the hybrid networking approach, like having the LinkedIn presence and sharing original content and reaching out to people and connecting with them on there is super important. But you cannot do it. It is not as powerful if done exclusively in that fashion. Just like networking is not as powerful if done exclusively face to face. You have to combine those disciplines. And that's something a lot of old school business folks have a very hard time with, because they are the warm handshake. Here's my business card, call you on the phone type of folks. And then we have kind of like my generation and younger, well, I'm kind of old. So like the people younger than me, right? Who, especially after COVID, they're all virtual coffees. If at all, they just network online. But doing that exclusively, you really miss out on some of there is unspeakable value in the warm handshake, here's my business card meeting. So combining those two things, obviously it takes more time to physically meet with somebody. So I would say for those physical meetings, probably lean more on the targeted end. But again, not exclusively, because you want to be able to build friendships and connect people.
Absolutely. Now, on that holistic piece,
Mhm.
okay, other benefits of networking, because it's not all just job related. You've got the rest of your life too.
Right. Oh, I mean, there's a million, like recreation is a great example. When I was networking more aggressively than ever, and I was networking, like, you want to talk about non-targeted, just everybody. I ended up meeting with people who somebody gave me Brewers tickets. Somebody worked for the Brewers and ended up getting me a meeting with somebody over there. Like I was invited to shows, and I brought my family with. I ended up connecting a friend of mine with a gardener because he needed a gardener, or he needed a landscaper. And in return, he bought me, I can't remember what he bought me, but like all of these good karma things just kind of swirl. Like I said, they swirl around together and they end up just paying you back tenfold. They always do. But a lot of those are, you do nice things for people, just not even thinking about something in return. And a lot of times that'll happen to you as well. And it'll happen to you and your family. And a lot of those things come in the form of opportunities, because you're networking with people who work for companies. You're networking with people who have their own businesses. And, when you do good things for them, they want to be able to pay it back. And so that happens. It happens a lot. And it's a good feeling to be able to help somebody without an expectation in return. And it's a great feeling to have somebody reach out and be like, "Hey, I did this thing for you. I have this event for your family to come to. I sent you a fruit cake," or what, just all these good vibe things that happen, like make you and your family feel good.
Yes, and it's motivating too. It
It
kind
is.
of leads you to do more of that, or to feel of that sense of empowerment.
It's addictive. It really is.
Oh, absolutely. Well, now, what is the first step with networking? And you said the best time to start was yesterday or
Right.
last year or whatever. But for those transitioning from military service currently, or thinking
Mhm.
about it, what is that the steps that they can take to really get on board with networking and really make it work to their advantage?
That is exactly where you start, is asking questions. If you don't know where to start, find somebody you trust and sit down and have coffee with them and ask them where to start. I'm looking to develop my network. You're a commander in your company or whatever, or a senior NCO or somebody who you trust or rely on, or a business professional, a government contractor, or whatever, who because you probably know a couple people. Nobody works in the military on an island. But sit down and say, hey, I'm looking for some guidance here. Do you have anyone that you can connect me with? I need to learn. I need to get on this network development tip. And people love helping and they love being asked to help. And a lot of times you get the information that you need. So that's step one, is don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm in this chapter, I'm in this stage in my journey, and I'm looking for guidance. I'm looking for best practices. Always, if you have opportunities to connect with people who are on the outside, who don't live on base, who might, work in a civilian job, you're probably going into the civilian workforce. So you should definitely talk to some civilians. Don't work exclusively within military folks, the military community rather. But yeah, ask questions, and don't be afraid to say, look, I'm approaching my transition and I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you give me some suggestions? Can you connect me with some people that you think might be a good resource? Not here's my resume, can I have a job, but could you point me in the right direction? I'd like to pick your brain. So be like, humble yourself, acknowledge that you are in that chapter of your journey, and ask questions and get the support. You won't be able to do it on an island. So that's step one. Step two is to get on LinkedIn and to lurk, hang out, and to see, to get your profile optimized to the best of your ability by looking at other people's optimized profiles, by looking at resources. There's a ton of resources on YouTube. Be a student of LinkedIn. And you won't be able to grow your network as effectively if you're a hermit on there. Like, you're not just going to create a LinkedIn profile and have recruiters throwing job offers at you for most industries. Some industries, yeah. The second you put your certifications on there, they're going to come after you. But for the most part, it's just not going to happen. You have to contribute. And that contribution comes in the form of sharing your subject matter expertise and sharing your story. And before you do that, lurk. Get on LinkedIn and see how it's a weird world LinkedIn is. If you think it's just another Facebook, you're wrong. If you think it's like a completely professional, like a job setting thing, you're wrong too, because it's evolved. It's different.
Absolutely. I love that. Just really, really kind of getting in kind of gradual. And then as those relationships come and flourish, then, job opportunities will come, professional and personal opportunities will come.
Absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Adam, how can people get in contact with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, I think is a good way. Find me on LinkedIn, and also my YouTube channel, The Thriving Veteran with Adam Braatz, is, excuse me, something that I'm trying to grow.
Okay, fantastic. We'll include all those in the show notes. Adam, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for all that you're doing for networking, for vets, for transitioners, to really thrive in no matter what direction in life that they choose.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.